Welcome to a sunny Saturday morning for the final round of the Blancpain GT Series for 2017, the fifth and final round of the Endurance Cup and the 10th and final round of the overall series. And as you can see, hazy-ish conditions, but the cloud is low, that is low is burning off. So join me, Bruce Jones and John Watson in the commentary box. Some people are going for a loftier viewing position, John, looking down at the circuit, but we're going to have a packed weekend of racing here. First of two practice sessions. I know you like to be up in a balloon, John, looking down.
No, all I would say is hot air. Not coming out of the commentary booth, but a few hundred feet above the beautiful Circuit de Catalunya. A very, very important weekend in this region. Alongside, this is the final round of the 10 round of championships for the Blancpain Sprint and Endurance, and we see track temperature actually lower than ambient, which is not normal, but it is maybe at this time of morning. Interestingly, we always said when we come here, Bruce, Barcelona, a racetrack of many characters and personalities. Right now, air is dense, great for aero, great for downforce, great for the engines. Then we go into the middle of the day, less aero, less air for the engines, but quicker in a straight line.
There's the dichotomy.
One of the ironies, so how do you work it out?
Right, 25 points up for grabs, so therefore only Vincent Abril for the number 8 Bentley crew can challenge the Grassa-Lamborghini pairing of Mirko Bortolotti and Christian Engelhardt. The second place in the championship is many more people can have a crack at that, right down to, I think, Andrea Caldarelli and Robin Frieds have an outside shot, but it's for the Lamborghini ahead of the Bentley that we'll be looking through the course of the overall GT Series standings. Of course, we're also looking at the Endurance Cup standings too. As you go further down, a lot of really quick guys who could work their way up the order, but effectively it's a two-way championship battle for outright honours. And in the Endurance Cup, it's also a two-way battle.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the lineup that some of these teams, notably the one that's the standout for me as we look further through the Endurance Cup championship points all the way down to pretty much Tom Cobley and all, because we've got so many drivers to take part. I mean, we've
got 50 cars here this weekend, so 150 drivers.
Yeah, Spa over 60 cars, roughly 160 odd drivers if you add in maybe some cars that are running more than 3.
But it's when you look down, Lawrence Van Tor, fabulous multiple champion in Blancpain Series in the past, down in 38th position. So a lot of these drivers have been backwards and forwards. The Nissan crew, they really deserve a good result this year, but it's been a struggle, hasn't it? It's
not been the best year. They are waiting for Evo 2 to come along.
Right. If we look here, how close would you like it? Obviously, the Bentley boys at the top of the Blancpain GT Endurance Cup, but again it's the Grassa-Lamborghini crew, Caldarelli, Bortolotti and Engelhardt, who are challenging. Again, it's a two-way battle, but this time it's the Bentley boys ahead of the Lamborghini fellas.
Yes, and the Caldarelli in alongside Bortolotti and Engelhardt in the 63 Lamborghini. That has got to be, I mean, one of your go-to cars as a potential, certainly pole sitter, as we're going to get a graphic now of this Barcelona circuit, Grand Prix circuit, MotoGP circuit, Blancpain Sprint and Endurance this year. Last year it was Sprint. It's the first time in this current era of the Blancpain Sprint and Endurance that the final round has been an endurance round. As we look at the 4.6, 16 turns, Circuit de Catalunya, really dominated by that kilometre plus long front straight. But it is a circuit that is changing constantly, causes great frustration. And you could almost rock up, I think I said this exactly the same thing last year, put your car on the track right now, make no changes to it, and you'll probably end up seeing the car's lap time rise rapidly, then drop back, then rise again towards the end of the day without even making any changes whatsoever.
Yeah, an engineer's head scratch, but at the end of the seasons, of course, they have a much better handle on the car, but all they've learned before, as you say, John, can have them questioning their own decisions through the course of the day. But right now, setting the pace, very early days indeed, the quickest lap so far. Car number 59, it's a McLaren. As I said that, it changed, but it's still changing. Andrew Watson, top of the charts, 1 minute 49.3. We will see the times coming down. The HTP Mercedes all lined up in the pit lane, so thank goodness that leaves a bit of space out on the circuit. But here, the 63 Lamborghini, this is the one going for honours this weekend with Caldarelli, Engelhardt and Bortolotti, and they've had their shares of fortune, both good and bad, through the course of the year, but consistently the speed is there. It's just a question of nailing it and getting to the finish.
Yes, and the 63 Lamborghini in general has been one of the winning cars throughout the season. Overall quickest in that second sector, personal best first sector. So the Lamborghini comes across start-finish line, and unsurprisingly, Mirko Bortolotti goes quickest by, 9/10 of a second. And we're going to ride with the Italian driver coming down this long straight, 260 kilometers an hour on the brakes. Feed the car in, don't be too aggressive on the steering, then the cut back to the left. And really the exit out of turn 2 is all about getting the car stable, Mirko, stable into turn 3. Long corner. You run out to the very edge, that AstroTurf, running it, keeping 2 of your 4 wheels on the racetrack at least. Then into turn 4, a long corner, nearly 180 degrees in its length, then back across the track from left to right. Difficult corner here because the camber always falls away from you, the track falls away from you, getting the nose in. So hard on the throttle again, through that little sort of minor kink into one of the more pivotal parts of the circuit. 7 and 8, you can get it wrong here, will destroy your lap. Now the key corner on the racetrack. Yes, Marco, give it the full bananas. Did he or not? I couldn't hear.
Well, someone was shouting in the commentary box. Well, I loved it earlier in the lap. Again, downhill, you said keep it stable. That moment, massive twitch from Mirko into turn 2. And again, it's just keeping it on the black stuff.
I mean, this is the track is, in relative terms, we saw it actually cooler than the ambient temperature. So it is a question of getting your tyre temperature up to the optimum temperature. Likewise, tyre pressures. How often are we going to tell our audience this? They know it better than we do. Anyway, the final, these 2 lefts and rights, or rights and lefts, whatever they are, spoil the character of this Circuit de Catalunya, but they were put in the interest of safety, and that's the period of time we're in.
So it is, John, at the time when they're worried about people tackling in rugby, precious ties. But Mirko Bortolotti, yet another good lap, just deposes Jules Gounon, who won a GT title last weekend in Germany, so he's on great form, and Bortolotti top. Philip Salicado, that's 2 quick laps in a row, but 1 minute 47.829. That is the top of the charts at 63. The challenger in the championship, both the overall, the Endurance Cup and the overall GT Series, is the number 8 Bentley. It's Andy Soucek who's at the wheel at the moment, sharing that with Vincent Labril and Maxime Soulet. Bentley looking very good.
I was very privileged, had a really wonderful day on Wednesday up at Bentley Motors, up at Crewe, just to see the whole assembly plant. The race team, of course, based up in Cumbria with M Sport. But one of the, I find, very interesting facts about this car is how much the engine, the V8 twin turbo engine, the production parts, the parts that you get in your road-going Continental, whatever the variation of it is, are the parts that are in the motor. It is virtually a stock motor. And I mean, now we go, well, where's the rods? Where's the crank? Where are the pistons? It is virtually, it's obviously been improved in terms of horsepower, but the quality of the parts are so high that they're able to race them.
Well, that's a magnificent accolade, and keep listening out there and then pop up to Crewe. In fact, I'm sure you can call them. You have to drive up to Crewe. Order yours now. But certainly just looking at it around this circuit, as you said, a circuit of many parts, but almost every part I've been watching the number 8 Bentley around this lap, it's looking very good indeed. It would have been interesting to see some more exterior shots of the 63 Lamborghini. We rode with it, but we saw Mirko Bortolotti having quite a few twitchy moments around the circuit, but then again he was pressing on in a way that made him fastest of all. Still 2 cars only in the 1 minute 47, so I don't know what this lap is going to produce at the end. The best time for the number 8 Bentley so far, somewhat off the top page of the screen.
It'll be certainly a top 6 time, personal best all the way through. So it comes across start finish line.
Outside the top 20. 23rd.
Well, I got that one right, didn't I? Well, personal best.
So wonder it looks so well balanced, but it's very early in the session. We've got an hour and a half this morning and an hour and a half starting at 4:40 this afternoon. For the Kaspersky Ferrari, unfortunately that's gone off. Marco Ciocci, Giancarlo Fisichella and James Collado, just trying to see who is in that at the moment.
Well, they haven't even got onto the time it's going yet.
Well, not in the top 40.
We don't know whether that was a...
Marco Ciocci, thank you.
It looks as if that was going into turns 7 and 8. And that might have been a mechanical problem. Maxime Soulet is already prepared to jump into the car.
Yeah.
That was the 66, and that just popped up. That's the Pro-Am. This 66, yeah. The Pro-Am Lamborghini of Attempt to Racing. So that's
good.
A strong job, yeah.
Yeah, they've got a different lineup this weekend. Van Spluteren being joined by Manuel Cicada, very late arrival, and Isaac Tutumlu.
Cicadas, are they things that make noise in the night?
I think he's going to make some noise in the morning, John, very soon. But Daniel Carvett's back on board the Rinaldi Racing 333. That's been such a strong lineup. And again, like Jules Gounon, he was having glory last weekend at Hockenheim. So a lot of these drivers are very, very busy beings, but it keeps them on their toes, keeps them fresh, keeps them sharp. So yes, just before turn 7.
Yeah. Whether that one would assume that that's a technical problem, it's not. It doesn't look like something went wrong in terms of entry into the corner. There would have been a lot of gravel all over the racetrack had that been the case.
Just look how busy it is, John, though. About 40 of the 50 cars out on track at the moment, therefore about 10 in the pit lane.
Well, it says 55 spun.
Oh.
So
well, I didn't see it.
No, we didn't see any evidence.
But I didn't see any disturbed gravel. I was looking for that.
That's why I said, well, it probably didn't spin, because you would have seen a shed load of gravel on the racetrack, but that's the message we're getting from the race director.
Yeah. Well, Marco Ciocci will be glad that you've supported him there, but so the 333, just looking to see how good a lap time that is, but of course that's the car that's been so super strong through the course this season, and I always like seeing a Ferrari that's not in bright red, and certainly the green of Rinaldi Racing always stands out.
So through the final turn 16, still a demanding corner, a lot slower than it potentially used to be, but comes across the start-finish line.
18th place.
18th place indeed. So again, one of the Pro-Am entries. Leading Pro-Am car currently is Jules Gounon in the AKS Mercedes-Benz, 4th quickest. Andy Soucek, sorry, the Bentley. I actually anticipated that lap time. I mean, it was a personal best on the previous lap.
You could see he could go faster.
I realised it exactly.
Yeah. Well, he might be able to go to the top because 63 Lamborghini in the pit lane. We also just had sight of the 59 McLaren that early on in Andrew Watson's hands went up. That just
cruising at the minute.
Well, that just came into the pits about 30 seconds ago. It's almost like he drove through the pits and went back out onto the circuit, but that wasn't a replay. So free practice here. We've still got an hour and more than an hour and a quarter to go. The track conditions, as John keeps saying, keep on changing. Gounon did have a quick lap and completed it, went to the top, so he really is flying. He's in the 87 ACA ASP, one of their 4 Mercedes. Showing that with Maurice Ritchie, or Mara Ritchie, has moved across this weekend to join Gounon and Bobelik, but Gounon very much the star in the car there, and he's fastest of all.
Yeah, and I've been sort of championing his cause throughout the season. I think that he is one of the young drivers of the future. I think it wasn't at Spa he had that victory.
The biggest victory of it, and then he's had his first championship victory.
Of course, that was in an Audi back now in the Mercedes League.
And he was racing last weekend in the Corvette C7R, so he's very good.
Very versatile.
Isn't he just? Good at this early stage in the season, so keeps his father, Jean-Marc, clocking up the air miles. He travels around the world, and also we've seen...
not one of those... he's not an angry dad.
He's not. He's about the loveliest dad you could imagine. But Gounon also, as Jules, done very well. He raced out in the Blancpain GT Asia Series earlier this year, so he's clocking up the air miles as well. A lot of cars coming into the pits. Daniel Kalvitz bringing the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari. Very narrow pit entry. We go past the control tower, and then you can see a handful of cars beneath the control tower, but they're in the GT Sports Club. And now suddenly Dominic Baumann has gone second fastest. So
interesting. Mercedes. Lamborghini, Bentley, Audi,
Lamborghini, McLaren,
and
Jake Dennis. Sorry, no, what am I talking about? He's in an Audi. The number 17 is an Audi, of course it is.
Yeah. 8th place, number 911.
What could that possibly be?
That's not the Chinese New Year number.
Or the American emergency number.
No, it's not.
No. So it's the last car on the entry list, 911. Bottom of the sheet, Herbert Motorsport, Robert Renauer, and the twins, his twin Alfred and Jürgen Hering. Just 21st position at the moment. That's Johnny Kane we're looking at on screen. Lots of cars, lots of liveries here at Barcelona. So the SMP Racing Ferrari shared by Victor Scheitard, Davide Rigon and Miguel Molina.
And those are the national colours of Russia.
But home ground here for Miguel Molina. Quite taily there. Bottom of the hill. Track still in a very good condition. Just coming up to the point where the Marco Ciocci spin took place. Still can't see the disturbed gravel though.
Well, it's a strange.
See markings just on the curbing, but
a strange place to spin because you're not travelling massively quickly. It's more about preparation for the entry than trying to nail it through the entry.
But you did comment about how turn 7 was absolutely crucial because you can see drivers just go in too deep and they can't get round, and then they compromise that flick at 8 and then the corner you think is the key corner at the top of the hill.
I think that was just the outlap for the 55 Ferrari. Maybe the tires were low on temperature, low on pressure, and that sort of instant snap loss of grip. But, well, we didn't see it. I don't think it was actually caught on camera. You can see the Ferrari actually coming through the final part in the 3rd sector of the circuit. kind of dancing around the nose. Normally the Ferrari is a very stable, settled car.
No, I think that's a great description, Darcy, around the nose. You can see earlier in the lap the tail really wanted to start wagging. Where that placed him, 18th. Okay, so that's sort of a good early shot, but that's 1.5 seconds off the ultimate pace. He needs to get past the BMW, which isn't travelling at the same sort of speed. 44th fastest versus 18th.
Yes, just up to 18th, like Molina, so.
Just watching him.
See who's the quickest overall. Well, it's the 888 Ferrari, Kessel Racing. That's the fastest AM in this weekend's event. There's not a massive AM entry. Pro-Am and the Pro category really being the dominant. Look at that, well, very moody, sort of misty shot. Still a lot of that sort of haul, or whatever you might describe it as, to be burned off, which no doubt shortly will do, because I mean, if it was like yesterday, the sun was out. It was a very pleasant day, 23, 24 Celsius. Frank Pereira. Of
course, they were gunning for the sprint title. It didn't come their way. But what a dramatic race weekend we had at
Unbelievable.
Nürburgring. You need to go home and watch it all over again to reappraise what went on. There was so much happening all the time. And in a championship as tight as this, that's what's going to happen.
I spoke to Robin Freins and Stuart Lemon last night, and he said, are you still celebrating, whatever? But they're almost sort of having to pinch themselves, because they think, well, I think Robin Freins said, well, we lucked in. But Robin, you were the guy, you were the winner, so there were lots of things that took place over the weekend, lots of hard luck stories. You were the guys that were there when the flag fell and you took the championship.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter, when he made that passing move on Marcus Winkelhock, neither of them, often teammates together, don't forget, really appreciated they were in the championship battle at that stage, but with others coming up against mishaps. Now the M6, I expected we'd see more of those through the course of the season, but of course BMW now bringing out its M8 to go racing next year.
It's almost as if the M6 has been a sort of a stopgap, with the M8 going to be the principal GT3 challenger from the Munich company. Still a very effective car, maybe better in endurance than in sprint. And we saw that last year, of course, at Spa when they won the race. Magnificent victory for the road racing BMWs.
Yeah, from the simple principle of doing nothing wrong. They were super smooth, exactly the right approach. This car at the moment, number 36, in fact, a new driver on board this weekend. We're looking at Matthias Henkola going around, sharing with Henry Volkenhorst, but they've got an American racer, Ace Roby. Good name for a driver, Ace Roby. He's got to be able to deliver, and he's come across to Europe. He really does fancy racing on this side of the pond, and just trying to gain experience. A handful of new drivers this weekend.
Tie up the horse.
Well, to your hire car, John. But lovely shot looking down, just showing how sweeping the circuit is. That's taken high towards the end of the lap. You see the cars coming to the top of your screen, which is the bottom of the infield straight.
Yeah, down into turn 10.
And then doubling their way back up the hill. At this point, in the olden days, of course, they'd have been waiting, getting the power on, and then going through that fabulous final sweeper. But now it's much tighter. You can see them suddenly having to go into the right, down the slope, rather than continuing round the curve of the hillside.
Up until, I think it must have been middle of last year, the motorcycles, MotoGP, used the original layout, and then sadly there was a very bad accident, and they themselves then decided that they would use the layout that is the current Grand Prix layout, the layout that we're running on here this weekend. Turn 16, the problem was not the corner, the problem was the runoff for the exit speed was just, the equation didn't work anymore, so that's why they decided to make that alteration in turns 13, 14 and 15 to basically slow the cars down. It's not a particularly appealing execution of what a chicane should be, but it does slow the cars down, which is the objective.
There's the one and only Jaguar here this weekend from Emil Frey Racing, Alex Fontana on home, Swiss racer Stefan Ortelli and Norbert Siedler. So a bit of a change in driver lineup from when it was competing in the Spa 24 Hours, but it's a car that I think has a lot of fans, has won fans over the course of the years, racing in, relatively unliveried, the blue of Emil Frey Racing, but that's a family that has generations of involvement at the top level.
They've got their sister car here, the 114, and also they're splitting their, there's a Lamborghini stopped up at the top now. What's going on up there? Is that one of the Barwell cars?
It's not the yellow Barwell car, but yes, I think it is. I think that's the Leo Mashitsky.
Red flag, straight away.
Well, that was very quick on the flags, but it is free practice.
It's in a difficult position. That's the reason why it's been decided to red flag it and get that car removed as quickly as possible to safety.
So as that happens, it's Maurice Ritchie listed at the top of the timesheets, but we know the time for the 87 ACA ASP Mercedes that is fastest of all was set by Jules Gounon, who just handed over to Maurice Ritchie. But yes, with the car sitting just around a corner over a bit of a brow, that is probably a sensible call, and we reckon that's the 78 Barwell car. Leo Mashitsky, Richard Abra and Jeroen Bleekemolen. 63, Championship challenger, Mirko Bortolotti. His time was right at the top end, now down third fastest, but only 0.2 of a second on the best lap so far. So still that belongs to Jules Gounon for Mercedes, ahead of Dominic Baumann, who just did that one very good lap in the 85 HTP Motorsports Mercedes. And the best of the Lamborghinis, there it is, third place overall.
So there's no urgency for the 63 Grass Racing Lamborghini in the driver change. Just going about it methodically, and assistance from the driver getting out Bortolotti to the driver getting in, and that's what will happen in situ. Putting up there's a safety net which has to be then reattached, which is there to prevent basically your limbs from flying around in the event of an accident.
Now, one thing
a NASCAR innovation,
absolutely,
initially, and then
good
transferring
idea.
into enclosed cars, touring cars, and GT.
Well, there you can see 0.2 of a second cover the top three as the Lamborghini is pulled back in. Can't tell, is it a Barwell or is it the HB car that was Richard Aber in the 78 at the time? But one thing worth pointing out, John, we're talking about how the track conditions change. This session started at 9 o'clock. Qualifying is at 9 o'clock tomorrow, so they've got to know what the car's handling like, potentially in similar conditions. But tomorrow's race is 3 o'clock. Again, the conditions will be wholly different. But so they're sort of working towards two aims, if you will, I'd suggest. Finding how sweet the car could be in the cool of the morning. There's Vincent Abril, Andy Suchek down the Bentley M Sport garage. So Vincent can have a tilt at the title. He's very well placed indeed. Bentley number 8 right in the mix.
So Maxime Soulet brings the number 8 Bentley in, still currently in that fourth position, just a quarter of a second behind the time that was set by Jules Gounon in the 87 ACA ASP Mercedes. And one would assume that the nature of the layout of the Barcelona circuit is going to play to the strengths of the Bentley team. And they, of course, are very much in the mix. Another strong driver lineup: Maxime Martin, Philippe Eng, Alexander Sims. Very strong indeed. Just a little message coming up on screen. Session will restart in a short notice. So they've obviously managed to get that Lamborghini. We've seen it being towed in. Hasn't yet got back to the garage. In fact, as I look out of the commentary box window, I can spot the Marco Ciocci's Ferrari just arriving back at the back of the paddock on a flatbed. And there is the car. It was a 777. So it was HP Racing. Yeah. So Edward Lewis Brown and Marc Rostin and Bernard Deliez. So another change of drivers through the course season. That was French veteran Marc Rostin. Used to work for Peugeot in the old days as an engineer. He looks like a Peugeot engineer, doesn't he?
You could tell.
They all look like. And what was the name of the French rally driver? Nicolo.
You're going out on a limb. I'm not sure I can join you on that limb, John.
He was one of the great French rally drivers of the 70s.
Okay, that'd be just...
So something Nicolas.
Oh, Jean-Pierre Nicolas.
Maybe Jean-Pierre, okay.
We'll go with that, shall we?
That's a good guess, yeah.
So, session restarts. We're green again. The balloons are still hovering above the circuit.
Oh,
it's escaped. Someone's cut the tether. Oh. It's off. Right, so back out onto the track. More than an hour of this free practice session remaining. That HB Racing Lamborghini pulled back in. We've seen the Ferrari and Marco Ciocci, the number 55 Kaspersky car, also make it back to the paddock. But out on the circuit, we're sure the times will start to tumble. But we just got to the point where quite a few of the teams were starting to rotate their drivers. They have 3 drivers, of course, for the Blancpain Endurance rounds. And as you can see, Belgian Audi Club and Team WRT close together out on the track. The car that has wrapped up a title was the Aston Martin, just went through the shot. Those are the Pro-Am Championship winners. They wrapped it up in the Spa 24 Hours. Consistency, absolutely key for them. Well, but great to have an Aston Martin still in the mix.
Consistency, obviously. But, I mean, some of the performances, in particular that of Johnny Adams, has just really driven that team.
Yeah.
I mean, at times they were outperforming many of the Pro cars.
Well, I think they had the fastest lap down at Monza overall.
I think it did do, absolutely.
Yeah. Of anyone. Yeah, no, he races though he's in the full top class.
The other element that's a bit of an unknown to all the teams this weekend, Barcelona is also known as, a funny circuit for tyres. We've got the 2017 Pirelli spec GT3 tyre on all these cars, so how that tower is performing. Is it different to what the teams have got on their records, or in their records from last year? And that's the benchmark from where they will start. So for some cars it'll be better, some will be no different, some might find it more of a struggle to get the car dialed in. So this 1.5 hour session, aside from getting your 3 drivers cycled through, getting them all established, settled, getting a benchmark time, will also be about trying to work your car around the 2017 Pirelli.
Yeah, avoid experience. Now it's trying to find a bit of free space. Team manager car number 89 and driver Ludo Baddy to stewards after session, so presumably some little misdemeanor out there on the circuit. We won't guess at it. Riding on board with Struan Moore in the number 22 Nissan. Struan started his life in the Ginetta Junior Series, went to single-seaters, and last year he was racing McLaren, of course, for Garage 59 in the Blancpain Series. Done a bit of LMP2 out in Asia, so he's gaining a lot of valuable experience, but right now he's getting the look at the back of a Mercedes, no space to pass it. Quite a difficult circuit for the overtaking, the circuit to Catalunya.
Yes, I mean, especially where you've got so many cars of sort of almost identical performance, so where you make your manoeuvres will be pretty much determined on working it out, but also the condition that you've left your tyres in and where your strength lies. In the case of the Nissan, everybody knows that they've got really good straight line performance, so as long as they can get out of turn 16 and be within contact of the car that they want to overtake, they will have that opportunity, maybe an easier opportunity than some of the other competitors around them.
Yeah, so tucked in behind one of the Black Falcon Mercedes, which is moving around a bit, but doesn't need to do much to hold the middle of the circuit. So you can see that Struan Moore is, he's not trying to race it, he's just trying to set the best time he can, get a feel for that Nissan. They're going to the high point of the circuit, and before they start sweeping around in that sharp right downhill, the Mercedes in front just struggling to get the front end to stick. Now they have to go to the tight right and drop down the hill. There is quite appreciable gradient change.
Yeah, but a lot of work on the steering wheel from Struan Moore, is having to really make continual adjustments, understeer, snap oversteer, then getting the car stable coming through turn 16. And at the same time, a little bit camera freeze, but he's on to that main straight. Nissan, the GTR is effectively at the end of its competitive life. There is the Evo model, which is currently under development. Michael Kroom, who's a big part of the whole Nissan GTR program over many years, has been driving the car. I understand from the grapevine, whether it's red or white or rosé, whatever you want it to be, that the new car is very much at the level of the competition that we're seeing right now.
Well, that's good. Round the course, that lap, you can just see towards the end of that, through the faster corners, the Mercedes seem to have it rather more under control. That said, the Mercedes then sweeps wide at the slower corner, can't get the front to do what it wants, and continues to move around. But always intriguing just to watch at a circuit where there is gradient. Struan Moore, I think, is getting a little bit fed up now.
Well, he's not quite able to get close enough to make a move and get down the inside and make it stick, so he sort of half gets there, then he has to back out of it. So that's the usual story. You lose your momentum. You're sitting there being dictated by the pace of the car ahead of you. Drop back, Struan. Drop back.
Yeah, well, time-wise, he hasn't moved forward, that's for sure. So there's the sister car, the 23, Lucas Ordonez. He is just such a Nissan fixture. Of course, he came through by winning that driver's scholarship that put him into racing, and a great ambassador for the marque. But his car sitting in the pit lane. Still, the number 87 Mercedes, top of the pile, 1 minute 47.615 seconds, and someone's just had a problem coming out of turn 10.
Turn 10, yeah.
It's Struan Moore's Nissan, so it's just look out of the commentary box, see him rising up. And there's the one and only Porsche down through the first quarter, chased by the Jaguar. The Jaguar just in the top 10, top 20th position overall.
911.
10 on the screen. 911 now.
Looking to see whether has that made it into the...
Yeah, it's
up
10.
To 10th,
sorry,
yes.
I just tripped myself
good
over.
Effort, good effort.
Jaguar was 20th, and there's Jürgen Hering sharing with the two Renault brothers. Alfred spends most of his season as team manager, whereas Robert's in the car a lot more, but their teammate Jürgen Hering trying to get as much racing in as he possibly can. Car looks good. I like that bright green wing and green mirrors. It stands out better than their regular race livery. And Jürgen's done some of his racing in the States, actually. It's GT3 Cup back last decade, but does a lot of Dubai 24 hours with the Renaults, so it's a good point way of kicking your season off. But come here at the end of the season, I mean, for so many drivers coming up against the really, really quick guys, it's such a learning procedure. And you look at the calibre of the top drivers in the Blancpain GT Series, and it just gets better and better and better.
Just interesting again yesterday, catching up with some of the competitors in the paddock, and their thoughts let's have an idea of what would be, if you were a driver and you were looking at making some alterations to the formats in terms of how cars run against, a pro car against a pro-am car against an am car. Would you keep everything as it is, or would you want to maybe have a small differential between the overall performance of an am car over, let's say, one of the difficulties that the pros have, and I'm talking from a pro driver perspective, is that when they catch up to an identical performance am car, they find it very difficult to get past. So, food for thought.
Well, let's find out what's happening down in the pits. Let's go to Bentley with Andy Soucek.
Andy, now this is your home race. It's going to be quite an interesting weekend for you.
Yes, for sure. I mean, we are leading the championship by 8 points. Let's see what the weather does. To be honest, that's the only thing we were a bit concerned about rain in the morning for qualifying on Sunday. But we just went out on track. I mean, the track is very green, no grip at all. I think we're all struggling for grip. My lap time was not too bad, but it's only the early start of the weekend, so it's a bit too early to say where we are. Let's see.
Let's see.
Thank you very much, but frankly I find it enormously disappointing that Andy hasn't arrived here with a full moustache like last year, which he had to shave off, having done what he needed to do. Maybe that was a painful experience.
I think once you've done it, any reprise is never going to be as good. So as Andy Soucek pointed out, not a lot of grip, track green. Well, you must be listening to us, because we know that every time we come to Barcelona, and when you run it, and there's the 87 Mercedes, that's the car that is still currently quickest. Yeah,
so that was Maurice Ritchie. Well, Jules Gounon started the session, we believe Maurice Ritchie. He's listed at the top of the time charts, but he won't go.
7 and 8.
Yeah, same again. So go and get a bit of gravel on your tyres.
Oh, no. Now don't go quickly, just go slowly. Oh, dear me. Oh, dear me. Oh.
So here we have, he's keeping out of the way of all the other drivers. Round the other drivers, he's just going to wait till they've come past, and he'll hug the curb on the inside. And in fact, he's managed to remove most of the gravel, but it only takes one little bead. But anyhow, he's kept it back on. Bruce, a bit more picking out. I'm being kind, John.
Let's be positive. I'll be positive. I don't think he dragged too much gravel onto the track.
No. Now we've got an incident between in turn 14 between that's the chicane between 72 and 82. The 72 car is the SMP Racing Ferrari. We saw that earlier in the session. And the third Grasser Racing Lamborghini, Giorgio Roda, Paolo Roberti and Tom Dillman, brought in no doubt to help bolster the championship challenge of the 63 sister car. We can't assist you with what that was because we didn't see it. Another car we haven't seen too much of so far is the 88 Mercedes. That's Tristan Vautier, Felix Sarraez and Daniel Juncadella. I really feel that's a car that should have delivered more results this year, because it's a pretty handy lineup there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the Mercedes AMG GT3's supercar, great long distance car. Danny Juncadella, I mean, my image of him is at Brands Hatch, coming out of Sterling's when he had that really leery moment, and he did a great job at keeping the car going in the right direction. Left tons of rubber on the racetrack, and just one of those moments that went, viral.
Sid in Chimay, I was going to say, if you haven't seen it, it got big numbers on YouTube. Go and take a look at that. And the 84 car now is one of the few that's actually making improvements up the order, and that's no mean driver on board. It's Frank Pereira, shares that HCB Motorsport car with Jimmy Eriksson and Maxi Buch. It's the bronze liveried one. Now some wonderful super slow-mo material and certain points on the circuit. You can see more corners than you expect elsewhere, but that's quite a chunky curb on the inside.
Yeah, it's a really, the curb is deliberately aggressive to prevent the little darlings from taking advantage and short-cutting it. So once the little darlings get the message, then they'll drive within the track limits.
Well, it was actually great just to see the difference. The 84 car, very careful, stayed off the curves, but those maybe less balanced, thumping that curb. But when it comes back down, you can see the car trying to settle. At that point, you should be turning right very sharply, and they're
a real traffic jam into turn 10. Well, just 6 cars all trying to get out of the way of one another, and some on out lap, some on in lap, some on a flying lap.
Some towing caravans by the speed as now they're starting to wind it up. So let's take a look. Audi's at the moment not towards the top end, not in the top 8. Just trying to work out who's the top Audi runner.
75. Frank Stippler. Well, it wasn't Frank Stippler. It was Salicata.
Oh yeah, of course. In 6th place, Salicata, and then just the next one up is number 17, Jake Dennis, just changing over to Robin Friens, just come out of the pit. So Robin back on board the 17, coming out onto the circuit, and of course he won the Blancpain sprint title.
The 90 Mercedes, the one that Raffaele Marciello did that stunning marathon behind the wheel back in the Spa 24 hours. Again, another very strong car.
Yeah,
Michael Meadows and Eduardo Mortara.
Yeah, very
Michael
handy.
Meadows behind the wheel at the minute.
To me, that's the best looking of all the Mercedes. I like that dark blue metallic
Looks
with the white
great.
stripe and the red.
But the car, where is it? All the way down in 36th, or currently, I should say, 36th quickest on a 149.5 as against a 1.9 seconds. No, the teams are running on rubber. That will not be brand new tires. Cycle your drivers through, go through the basic sort of homework that you need to do. When it comes down to qualifying this time, roughly tomorrow, maybe there'll be a different pace out of the number 90 Mercedes.
Yeah, I think with a lot of these teams, they are working through the process this morning. An hour and a half this morning, an hour and a half this afternoon, starting at 4:40. Black and white, car 72 is seen to be the guilty one. The SMP Racing Ferrari, black and white flag for driving standards.
Which driver is that being shown to? The 72 cars, Molina's behind the wheel at the minute, currently 22nd quickest. So I wonder what that relates to. Is it just curb hopping? Well, that would be...
Well, no, they pinged it for an incident or warned it for an incident earlier, but we didn't know what that incident was. It was up at the chicane, so who knows? But with another car, maybe they dived up the inside. No point guessing. So the number 90 Mercedes, as John pointed out, down in 36th position. Will we see much from him? Not on this lap. No, that's going slower.
Stays 36th.
But as we saw a couple of minutes ago, a whole bunch of cars tripping each other up at turn 10, one going quite slowly, everybody else getting bunched up behind. Not all the cars out on circuit. We can see the 8 Bentley, don't forget. Just think of these numbers, 8 and 63. Keep them in your mind through the course of today and tomorrow at the Circuit de Catalunya. They are the two fighting for overall honours.
What some teams are doing is not going and trying to be quickest all the way through a session. There is a 3-hour race on Sunday. And in that 3-hour race, things will change. And what they're trying to do is find the kind of balance and setup that A, suits all 3 drivers, B, that is easy on the car, tyre, the whole package. So that's maybe why we're seeing the number 90 Mercedes so far down at this point. All the 88, which is in 37th, you're directly behind the 90 car. You know, Christopher Haase in the 26 Audi, 38th. These guys' car packages normally would be sort of fighting to be in the top 10. But they're doing their homework. They're just going through this. It's metronomic. It's important to do. If you don't gather your information, then you've got no base to work from once you get into the 3-hour event on Sunday.
Now, one of quite a handful of Spanish drivers in the race, Isaac Tutumlu in the 66 Lamborghini. Don't forget the Attempto car went very well early on and it's in 8th place still overall, but the quick lap was set by one of his teammates.
Not really actually seeing an awful lot of change.
No, we're not.
The last change came with 84 Mercedes, Jimmy Eriksson behind the wheel right now.
In fact, looking at the top 40 cars, there was one down towards, I think, the number 98 BMW just improved its position to 35th overall. But we need green on our screen, don't we, John? That means people going faster.
Well, why we haven't got green is because whatever tyre the teams put on their car, I suspect they're still on that same tyre. So they've had the best of the running on that set, and they're now going through this. And this is what they're having to contend with during these 3 single-hour stints that comprise the 3 hours of Sunday's race. Incident between 7, turn 7 between 60.
Well, indeed, there's Pierre Herré. That's the 488, well picked out around the circuit. 1 of 2 by Rinaldi Racing.
That you're doing. There's a number of turn 3 in particular, a big G corner, so you.
The top 14, 15 cars, so it's close, but it will get closer.
What I'm looking for in the top 20 is one of the Nissans. I found it as 19th. This Chio-san is the lead Nissan in 19th place. The sister car, 28th, the number 22 car.
So they're over racing BMW 98. That needs to pick up its pace a little bit. We saw Tom Blomqvist, one of the few drivers making progress in that. That's been handed over to Bruno Spengler now. And another BMW to look at there is one of the two Walkenhorst Motorsport cars, 35. That's being shared this weekend. Christian Kronius, a Norwegian driver, Mikkel Jensen from Denmark, and Nico Menzel from Germany. Like so many cars, 3 drivers, 3 nationalities. It really is a veritable fruit salad. Again, hazy shots still at this point in the morning. I thought they would have burnt off a bit more.
Local time of 10 to 10 in the morning. It is beginning to burn off. We can now see more of the hills around the Circuit de Catalunya.
Yeah, we're just to the north of Barcelona, not that far from the coast, but the weather has always been quite changeable here, hasn't it? The wind direction is the thing that seems to really sort it out.
The fact that we've got sort of, you can't really call them mountains, but they are sort of, let's say, hills on steroids. So they will also have a function, a bearing on what the weather is. And of course, the other thing that's changed since I came here, I think 20 more years ago, is that how built up. You can't see the circuit anymore. Used to be driving up the road to Girona, and there was like a beacon. Now you can't see it because you've got industrial buildings all around the place.
Yeah, and in fact, the thing that really struck me, I came back here last year for the first time after decades, and I just couldn't believe how the trees, the little saplings around the circuit, have grown up. It sort of made me almost feel as though my bearings were lost. I mean, the circuit is still exactly as it was, but the infrastructure has changed. But most notably, John, you stand high in the grandstands, you don't look out across woods and fields anymore. It is an industrial area now. But still a great stretch of circuit. Now, pointing to the screen, car 72 with Miguel Molina to the stewards after the session. So he'll be joining Ludo Bade on the steps outside the office. And 66 and 48 also to the stewards, to Tumlu and Pierre Ayre. So with this many cars on the track, a few people haven't been putting their car positioning quite right.
What the message doesn't say is, bring your debit card.
Yes.
We don't do checks anymore.
No.
Do debit cards.
Money transfers.
Well, we might do something similar, yes.
So as you can see, just looking out on the circuit, it's very easy to get boxed in. And right now, if the drivers are just trying to find the sweet spot on their tyres, the sweet spot in their performance, then they need to make space themselves. There's one of the 2 Barwell Lamborghinis going down to the bottom back straight.
Oliver Jarvis currently behind the wheel of the number 7 Bentley. Remember, Oliver Jarvis joins the M Sport Bentley team in the endurance rounds only. That car's now dropped to 29th place, which is not a reflection of Oliver Jarvis. It's just a reflection of where we are right now. We're 50 minutes into the session, and it's just gone into one of those sort of nobody's making progress in terms of times on the screen. They're making progress with the car, but it's not being reflected. And what they're doing is what essentially happens in Barcelona. You get that very quick peak when times are all being set, then all of a sudden things just seem to go into a sort of a strange...
Look at the white BMW turning into turn 1. He has just improved his time, so he's bucked the trend up to 31st. That's Mikkel Jensen, the Danish racer, one of the 2 Walkenhorst BMWs. He wants more. He's trying to get round the number 3 Audi, so he's certainly got his tail up. Clement Mateur, Josh Kaigill and John Venter.
And he does the passes. He gets the pass done. Clearly had more speed coming out of turn 2. The Audi trying to come back, but a forlorn effort. You're on the outside going into turn 4. What do you think you're going to do? Annika Rosberg.
Daniel Juncadella comes from nowhere, about 35th position into 2nd. So he's just that's bucked the trend. We said the 88 needed to get a move on. They listen.
Let me put my thinking cap on and think, why has Danny Juncadella gone from wherever he was to 2nd quickest? I can't imagine it would be anything that he did. There's tyres, fresh rubber.
No, it's because he's racing at home, John. You know that full well. It's the inspiration to keep the Juncadella name up in racing lights, and 2nd fastest, so much closer at the top, just moves ahead of the 85 Mercedes. So it's Mercedes now at the top of the charts. Bit of a theme there at the moment. So these conditions, the Mercedes clearly a very good handling car around the circuit, but a circuit of 16 corners. You'll be watching that BMW. He's now backed right off, having fought his way past the Audi. The Audi's still tucked in behind, but actually it was a force-shortening shot that made it look as though he's off the power, whereas in fact he was just waiting to put the power on out of turn 11 at the top of the hill. Now snaking his way down towards the end of the lap, but don't think we're going to see an improvement from him. No, his early part of the lap slightly down on his previous time. Will be no improvement, stays at 35th, but he started to put consistent laps in there, Mikkel Jensen.
So I wonder, now that one team, ACA, ASP have decided to put on, let's say, the best of the rubber they have. It may be new. It might be a very, very low mileage set of used tyres. All of a sudden, and as we go on board with Alexander Matishul in the 333 Ferrari. So I wonder will other teams take what they've just seen from the Daniel Juncadella time and decide to go now, or are they going to wait until the end of the session? When, in theory, the track should be at its best, because it does take time for a circuit that has been out of use for, I can't remember the last race, that was probably last weekend, there may have been an event here. But tracks go from being, you know, rubbered in and grippy to going back to green and dusty and needing to be cleaned up as the Ferrari 333 makes its way into the pit lane. So, you see, watch for the line there is the speed limit line. Back to the action on the main straight.
So again, looking for movers, but a lot of the front runners. 19 is right in the mix. 19 Lamborghini with the sister car tucked in behind. Circulating is what they're doing now. And there's the 777 Lamborghini. That had a problem earlier. That was the one that was towed back in.
I just wonder, is a bit of paranoia beginning to set into the pit lane at the minute? You've got 4 Mercedes in the top 5 positions. It's only the 63 Lamborghini that's actually splitting, being a top 4 for the brand. The number 8 Bentley in 6th place, the Audi in 775, then Fuminelli, the leading Pro-Am, in 8th, then 66, another Pro-Am entry in 9th, Robin Friends, who's dropped down, or the 17th Audi has dropped down to 10th overall, rounding out there Daniel Perfetti.
He was fastest yesterday in the bronze test, so he's one of the ASP cars, Swiss racer. 1 minute 49.8 yesterday, and today appreciably quicker than that for ASP, running 4 Mercedes, so they've got plenty on their hands. But 18th fastest at the moment for Perfetti, and that's a second or so faster than he managed yesterday. So yeah, the track is improving its form, its shape, its fashion.
The thing is, they ran, the bronze drivers got their outing around about 4 p.m. on Friday afternoon, so it was warm at that point. So track conditions again would be quite different to those that we're encountering at the minute, and everybody will be taking the car in, putting it to bed last night, leave it as it is, getting into this morning and saying, what have you done to the car? Why is it handling this way? It's just simply the character of this circuit.
Yeah, and even the quicker runners are now really struggling. The temperature really seems to be coming to the circuit, and therefore not helping them in any way, shape or form at this point. So it's Mercedes really dominating the show at the moment, but looking down the screen, trying to find other likely front runners and wondering why they're not at the top. But certainly for the Audis at the moment, it's not looking super sweet, but we've said that time and again. One car I just saw got back on board in the championship this weekend, the 24 Lamborghini in the background, right at Young Stars. That's Marco Hedis-Sakangas and Caitlin Wood. They joined the series earlier in the year with the Gallardo, but after Brands Hatch, where Hedis-Sakangas had that shunt, they were removed from the championship to lick their wounds and come back. And in Thomas Enger, they've got the old hand to keep them straight. I mean, look,
every day Thomas Enger's around, there's always going to be an amusing, good day. And I mean, the Gallardo is still a competitive car, but not maybe at the level of the latest brands. For example, the Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, it was always supposed to be
AMG. It's just, I mean, what a great car it's proved to be.
Yeah, but
except two weekends ago for Max Book, when it looked like there was a mechanical failure, and that just blew their chances of winning the Sprint Cup.
Yes, that incident was purely when he just couldn't get it through the final corner, went out across the gravel, and seems something broke beforehand, because that's not the place you'd see it. Now, this car we thought something had broken on that, but clearly not. Whatever it was, we'll find out later from Robin Friends, but the car came back in, having brought out that red flag to this session. It's a very short red flag, was driven back into the pits, new set of tyres, and sent on its way. That's still listed as being now, it was 9th, it's now 10th in our time charts after the 88 Mercedes suddenly went from nowhere up into 2nd place overall. But seems nothing untoward in the 17 Audi, which is good to know. The number 3 Audi, looking at that's not so quite Mathieu. They were just outside. They were in 40th last time I blinked, and they're outside the top 40 now, so they've been rather toppled.
I mean, if you're looking at timing and scoring, we've got the top 40. only the number 2 Audi, that's driven by Benoit Trullier, has got a fastest sector time, personal best in green. There is no green anywhere to be seen.
Yeah, he was put in the car relatively recently. He'll be starting to wind out. Clement Mathieu sharing that number 3 car with Josh Keigill and John Venter. And I pointed out a British driver and an Australian driver, so yet another crew of 3 nationalities.
Wow,
but Clement's slightly in the way of the Nissan there, I think.
It certainly was. I mean, the Nissan took a massive lump of curb on the inside. Whether that was for avoiding action or not, looks like Chio-san very anxious to put the Nissan ahead of the Audi down the straight. Let's get an indication of the straight line speed. Well, we're going off to...
Oh, we just talked about
the Lamborghini.
The Gallardo. Is that rear tyre already flat, or is it a bit of body? Let's have a little look.
I think it might be the part of the bodywork. It's a tyre.
So it's one of the... Yes, no, it's bodywork.
It's the inner guard.
Inner guard, okay. Yeah. So that was down 45th on the timesheet. So we talked about just really needing track time here. Staying on the track time is the best sort of track time. I find 43 on McLaren's. We had the best place in McLaren's is David Fuminelli in 8th place overall. So that's sort of in the mix. The 43 car, 32nd. You can see the number on the windscreen. That's its overall position. And Sam Tordorf has just brought that into the pits. He's now just hopped out to do a driver change. So Sam is just out of the car. He's just strapped behind the door with his pink liveried helmet. He's strapping a teammate in. And 43, he's sharing this weekend with Johnny Kane and Ben Barnicott. I think it's probably Ben's turn to go in the car. Johnny was out in that early on in the session.
There's the 59 McLaren coming into view and quickly out of it. There's still looking up and down the timing and scoring, and it's just driver circulation, driver rotation. The number 90 looks like they got Raffaele Marcello behind the wheel. So whether he has been given something a little bit more competitive in terms of rubber, I'd be interested to see, because...
Okay, John, I just was looking...
Just looking at the time. It's still the 87 Jules Gounon who set that time way back in the opening minutes of the session. And it's only Danny Juncadella who's gotten within a tenth or so of a second much later on his 20th lap, having that car's now completed 22 laps.
Just had a look out the window to see if the 24 Lamborghini was coming back into the pits after that moment at the top of the circuit. We saw some bodywork flapping in the driver's right rear wheel arch, but it's carried on past, so it should be in about turn 3 at the moment. So still with the bodywork flapping, the trim coming loose. That car continues to circulate.
That's vanished.
No, something was still flapping. Yeah, as it came down the straight, past underneath our commentary position.
Well, it will soon vanish over that.
Yes. And hopefully won't catch anybody else out, but that's continuing on its way. So one of the 2 Jaguars in the pit lane, the 114 car, that was the bottom end of the top 20 when last looked. It's probably fallen, 25th place overall now, just see behind the air jack. Feed-in point, but busy in the pit lane. Half an hour still remaining in this 1.5 hours of free practice. The low cloud of the morning is gradually burning off, but it's still, as you can see, quite a hazy morning at the circuit to Catalunya, and it's a very good morning for the Mercedes. It's not such a good morning for the Audis, I was about to say, and there's the number 5 stopped out on circuit. That's shared by Marcel Fessler, Will Stevens and Dries Van Tor. Marcel Fessler, who was eating breakfast in our hotel earlier, staying there.
That was the original corner down at turn 10. Again, another alteration made a number of years ago. So that was the original. Let's look and see what happened as the Audi comes down. There's another massive lockup. No, I don't get to see it. Oh, it is strange. It's the second Audi we've seen identical to the 17 car. And I mean, these things are at ABS. Why are they locking up their front brakes like this?
Well, he got going again. He drove, as John pointed out, around the longer original loop down at turn 10, and is presumably going to be coming into the pits, just turning to see if that's where he's heading. Yes, he is into the pit lane. So number 5, Marcel Fessler, and 12th place overall. He's going to hand it over to Dries Van Tor. There's Dries coming out with Berghoff written on his overalls. You can tell it's him, and the red, yellow and black of the Belgian flag on his helmet.
Really come of age.
Hasn't he just?
From the middle of the season onwards, both the pace and the maturity of Dries Van Tor have been very evident indeed. Very disappointed at Nürburgring. They thought they were a very good chance, but unfortunately it didn't materialise.
It's always incredibly cruel when you think the balance has finally swung your way and then it goes away in the opposite direction. And actually, at the end of the season, I'm going to watch back that entire Nürburgring race because so much happened. So many drivers actually, in the end, were in with a shot at the title. We then went with 7 crews lining up for the sprint title. It effectively came down to 5 once we got to the main race.
What did I say? What did I say, Bruce?
You said look out for Raffaele Marciello under your breath, so no one heard you.
Correct.
So fastest of all, 1 minute 47.448 seconds, fastest now by 0.167. So the reign of one of the sister cars from ASP, the 87 car had been top with Jules Gounon setting that earlier time. It's finally been beaten by a teammate, and the teammate is Raffaele Marciello, sharing with Eduardo Mortara and Michael Meadows. You fancied its chances, John, and it has moved to the top of the time charts. Meanwhile, literally no one else, only Ollie Jarvis at the moment, down in 31st position in his bench. We've got wave yellow flag on the start.
That's going into turn 1.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the flag waving position.
It's, well, so just at the end of the pit lane you can see, but where the incident is, well, that's the back of the 90 Mercedes.
Yeah, well, they are 0-1 flashing on the screen. So Raffaele Marciello, the driver who very nearly did the maximum of 14 hours in the Spa 24, 4 hours, continues on his way. And now fastest of all, he's now just improved on the first sector. And
not only improved, is purple, which is the quickest ever.
But I was just wondering about the waved yellow flag. But
I don't know what we never saw. He backed off, obviously, in the middle sector. Why we had that yellow flag at the end of the pit lane, indicating there was something into turn 1, but nothing was shown. Oh, well, there it is. Oh dear.
Which of the 3 Grasser Lamborghinis has got that flat tyre? Can't see at the moment. It's 19. Okay, that's not the one featuring in the title battle. That's Ezekiel Perez Compact. Fred Vervish and Renger van der Zande changed driver lineup this weekend. And limping. Oh, dear me, car's getting very close behind it. Has to keep out of the way, but
he's done a good job.
He has done a very good job.
Coming through 7 and 8, it's very hard not to be at some point.
Well, it's Renger van der Zande, the Dutch racer at the wheel, had a very, very good win in the States last weekend, driving prototypes.
Doing the right thing, coming back slowly. You can see that the tyre is just about hanging in there. Slower he goes. I'm trying to cut across to make sure that he doesn't catch anybody in the exit of turn 9.
Yeah, and so he's half on the curb on the inside, so he's doing all he possibly can.
In the mirrors to try and make a judgment. He did a good job of that.
But he's still got a couple of kilometres to go, get back to pit in. And there's one of the sister cars. That's the 3rd car from the Grasser crew this weekend. That's the one shed. Number 82. Tom Dillman on board this weekend in that with Paolo Roberti and Giorgio Roda. There's the Aston Martin that was so strong at the start of the championship that's already wrapped up the Pro-Am title. The one and only Aston Martin in the field, the Oman racing team.
38th quickest currently.
Yeah, Ahmed Al Hati at the wheel, but it's Johnny Adam who is the star in the car when he gets on, whenever he gets on board. And Omani racer, Ahmed Al Hati. And we wonder what they'll be bringing along next year. Aston Martin, of course, just announced their move into Formula 1 with Red Bull Racing in 2018.
Yawn.
News went down very well in the house of John Watson. He stayed up all night to read.
Look, they're going to have to go and look to an
red flag.
Yes, independent engine builder. Aston Martin don't build Formula 1 engines.
Yeah, but it's the spreading of the wings under Andy Palmer, Aston Martin. Do you see they launched a shooting brake yesterday? Wouldn't be big enough to put my dog in the boot, but still interesting. Many new models coming out at the moment. But the advantage quite long in the tooth in terms of GT3 racing. So the 19 Lamborghini still limping its way back. They're throwing the red flag, and the team manager has been asked to go to the race control.
Car 19 stopped at T9. Well,
he hasn't stopped, but he's also being asked to go to the race director immediately. I would have said that Renger did everything he did to keep out of the way.
In my opinion, he's done all he can do.
But he's not trying to race back. He's trying to limp back, and that risks less damage. Anyhow, that is the situation. Red flag because
so everybody backed up. Nobody can overtake the 19 because overtaking the 19 would then be an infringement of overtaking under a red flag. So we've now got a train of cars.
A mere 20 cars behind him, I think.
All sitting, waiting behind the number 19 Lamborghini.
And he's almost
its way back to the pits.
He's almost not quite walking pace, but really backed off down to the chicane. He can't get round the chicane. That's a sensible move.
Thing. He doesn't have to go through the chicane, so he's gained a little bit of space. He'll be straight into the pit lane, and everybody else will then. Some may follow him in because it will destroy the program that they're currently on.
Yeah, they're all following. I
imagine there's going to be a large number of cars. It is still a red flag situation, so everybody is required to come into the pit lane at this time. I mean, I wonder why the red flag was thrown, because unless there's something we are unaware of,
Well, I didn't. Well,
we haven't spotted anything particularly because the 19 Lamborghini wouldn't, in its own right, be a reason to throw a red flag. I would have thought.
Well, just looking at it coming to the pit lane, I can't see that any bodywork has come off that car. Sometimes if the carcass comes off the tyre, it snaps away. What we do have though is Mercedes now filling 5 of the top 6 positions. But the big change was the 87. It was the 90 car going ahead of 87 to the top of the charts, 1 minute 47.3 seconds. So nearly 0.3 of a second clear of the time set early on by the 87 car in the hands of Jougunon. So it's looking very strong for Mercedes. Still plenty of time for people to put fresh rubber on their cars at the moment. But would you do that with 20 odd minutes of the session remaining, or would you just go, get out there, get on with the programme?
Well, I mean, what we have now, the top 6 positions, 5 of them are filled by the Mercedes. It's only the 63 Lamborghini in 5th place. That's broken up what would be a top 5 for the brand.
Right, red flag didn't last long, as we expected. The last car's just coming into the pit lane, including the 43 McLaren at the back of the line, but the car's back out onto the circuit. We're going practicing all over again. So will we get down into 1 minute 46s in this session? It doesn't really matter, but for a lot of the runners, they need to move up their pace. The top second only covers the top 10 now. Normally in the Blancpain GT Series, the top 20 would be squeezed into the top second, and I'm sure we'll see that when we get to qualifying, starting 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. 2 Jaguars there from Emil Fry Racing, 14 and 144, 14, 15th fastest at the moment. The sister car, 26th, but I have a feeling the sister car, the 114 car, had just gone out onto the circuit to start seeing what it could do. It was in the pit lane not so long ago, so it depends where you are when the red flag is thrown.
Now, I mean, the teams probably wouldn't have had much time to come in, do a substantial change, i.e. put on a fresh set of tyres, to get some kind of indication as to where the track might be. Let's wait and see.
Well, what can Mercedes do? We know they can go well, but how about what can Lamborghini go? Andrea Caldarelli.
Andrea, now you're currently running in P5 at the moment, so early days, but it looks quite good for you.
Yeah, no, at the moment we are doing a quite good job. We are actually planning everything for the race, so we are really focused on long run. So to see us there already in P1 with all tires and on long run, it's very comfortable, you know. The car looks very good, and I felt very good with the car. Mirko said the same, so yeah, we are quite happy.
Let's see how it goes.
Thank you, and that was Andrea Caldarelli. Stumbled over his name earlier, but here we go. So look, very comfortable, and certainly his demeanour, John, is one of they seem on top of the situation.
Yes, he's a very confident person, a very capable driver as well. We've got Christian Engelhardt in the car presently, so backs off coming through the chicane, looking for a little bit of space, backs up cars behind him. That will not be a particularly popular move, bearing in mind it's one of the Attempter Racing Lamborghinis, but he just wants that little bit of space to get the clear run through turn 16. He's got traffic ahead of him, so one of the BMWs, and undoubtedly that will come into his radar very quickly. And one of the row racing, or in fact the 2 row racing BMWs.
They're far enough ahead not to affect this lap. It's a question of when he thinks is how soon he will catch them. But for the 66 Attempto car, it's just going to be having a lesson, sitting in his wake, seeing exactly how the 63 car is handling, where it turns into corners. So still at this late point in the season, drivers are learning, but with the calibre of the top drivers as examples, who are better to learn from? But the 63 car
notice just how much Engelhardt has pulled away from the Attempter Racing Lamborghini. 2 identical cars, difference really being the engineering behind the steering wheel, in other words the drivers. So Engelhardt a little bit more capable than I was saying from the 66 as it comes down now into turn 7. Ease the nose in, watch the back end of the car, don't let it start to rotate around, then accelerate up the hill. Listen. They had to breathe it. That is a big corner by anybody's stretch of imagination. On the limit, really, but on the exit of the corner, this down into turn 10.
But unlike the Audis, not locking up into turn 10, not once but twice, and 2 of their top drivers, Marcel Fesser and Robin Fried's, getting it wrong for some reason, we know not why, down into turn 10. But the Lamborghini, very similar.
Balance looks good. He's got good front end bite. He's able to get the nose in, and you can see, even though he's having to be a little bit of adjustment on the steering wheel now into this very tight, frustratingly so chicane. The first part easier than this here, the 11 at 14, 15, where the temptation Runs, how wide is that? Look, Bruce, camera froze. That was a Freudian slip if I ever saw one. No, it didn't freeze intentionally, but it just saw the number 63 Lamborghini virtually all four wheels off the track.
Sharp intake of breath, so that wasn't the best of laps there for Christian Engelhardt.
A 150.024, which is just over 2.2 seconds away from its previous best.
So it was great to be on board. A hairy, scary moment, not for us because we were sitting in the commentary box, but certainly for Christian Engelhardt. He realised that he was very wide, tried to keep his foot in, and it's now been just reiterated that his teammate, but from the 19 Lamborghini, Renger van der Zande, we saw him limping in with the tyre, having blown one of his rear tyres, called to see the stewards.
We didn't see how that tyre got either cut down or whatever happened to it.
Yeah, was it contact with another car? We do not know.
That's the point. So I would assume there's a logical reason why the team manager and driver would be requested to go and see the stewards after the session.
Yeah, because certainly nothing we saw, John,
no.
As he came back, we commented just how incredibly carefully he was driving that. He wasn't trying to cane it back to the pits and risk the tyre coming off the wheel entirely and damaging the bodywork and leaving shards of anything. We thought it was a very sensible approach, so maybe something out of sight earlier in the lap.
So down into turn 10, Christian Engelhardt catches up to the first of the two of the Royal Racing BMWs that are directly ahead of him. Frustration now because he can do nothing at this part of the...
12th, now 13th position. You get the Lamborghini past the BMW, very, very close as they go past our commentary position down towards turn 1, but he's got 3 BMWs to get past now.
It's going to be a tough one. He's going to have to go down the inside and take a punt, and he hasn't got the track to do it. So the BMW's got the straight line performance and the track position to enable him to break that a little bit later.
Yeah, Engelhardt needs to back off.
75.
Well, that's the best place. Was the best place they had is Philippe Salacada. He just had actually a good sector on the previous lap, but this is a most un-Audi-ish session in many, many ways. So Philippe Salacada leaving his braking a little too late.
Going into turn 7 and 8 again. I have not seen as many cars getting it wrong into turn 7 as we've seen in this session, probably over any weekend we've been here.
No. Yes, it's a corner where drivers compromise themselves, but very seldom do you see them going off. They've just lost their momentum, but this time they're just going very, very deep into the corner. So keeping out of the way, moving to the other side of the circuit, so he's doing the right sort of thing, uses mirrors there to let one of the WRT Audis come down into that corner now.
Well, what do you do?
Where can you go?
Well, you just got to stop almost and let the traffic go through. I mean, it's an impossibility when you've got 51 cars entered, and probably at the minute we've got the best part of 30 or more on the racetrack. In fact, maybe not even that, because from 21st down to 38th, they're all in the pits.
Yeah, busy place. So we did have an improvement last time around. We mentioned the Aston Martin under the name Johnny Adam. He's taken it over from Ahmed O'Harty, and suddenly it's gone up from 30-something to 13th, so that 97. Aston Martin making decent progress. Daniel Perfetti, fastest in the solo, the test yesterday, only for the bronze level drivers, and Daniel, that I think is a sort of driver who could well be moving up a level or two next year. Certainly very, very handy in GTs.
In fact, just looking at the timing and scoring, it's 21st to 38th have all dropped a position because of that time by Johnny Adams. So
yeah,
when I saw all the red arrows, I thought
you thought they were in the pits.
They're not. They're just dropped down one position.
Yeah, so he gained a mere 25 positions with that lap. This lap not looking quite as good, but as we've seen, traffic can have a role to play in that. Who's in front of you? Are they obstructing you? Are they putting you off? But everybody now just starting to wind towards the end of the session. 14 minutes remaining. We've had a few little red flag flurries, but they've all been very, very short-lived indeed. But for some, getting others out of their way. But this is the 21st fastest car, being flashed by the driver who's just one position up the charts in 20th, Daniel Perfetti. But he's getting frustrated in the ACA ASP Mercedes, one of 4 from the French team's camp. Well, we've just been hearing of Aston Martin, talking about them, but already the Pro-Am champions, and we've caught up with one of them, Ahmed O'Harty.
Now you're already Pro-Am winners. How does that feel?
It's an amazing feeling, to be honest, coming to Barcelona, having won the championship at Spa, finishing on the podium at Spa was amazing. It's a very, very difficult feeling to express, to be honest.
And what is it like being a part of a Blancpain GT Series?
It's the strongest GT3 championship in the world, and to be able to be crowned Pro-Am champions, I mean, Johnny did an amazing job in the car, and so did Sally and Ewan at Spa that got us enough points. and to come to Barcelona slightly more relaxed than usual, but for sure, you know, the excitement is here at Barcelona as well.
Very good, well done, thanks.
Always good to hear from Ahmed Al-Hati, and 13th is the number on the windscreen, 13th overall. But Johnny Adam, give him an Aston Martin and he can make it fly wherever he goes. So up to 13th, he gained a mere 25 positions or so in that car since he took it over from his Omani teammate. But if you want your tyres to be sweet, you give them to this man here for qualifying.
And the thing that the Aston has got is it's got this lovely balance that you get with what I keep using as a mid front engine car. So however Aston engineers have configured it, it rides well, the balance of the car, front to rear. It's just an easy car, particularly for a Pro-Am driver, to get his head around. And I mean, if you've got a nervy, twitchy car, you will not get performance, but the Aston certainly has helped in that Pro-Am category, and Ahmed Al-Hati has done a stunning job, quite often in some of the endurance rounds, double stinting.
So, yeah, again, a big learning process, and I'm being very calm. It looks like the Aston Martin's coming into the pits. Johnny set his time, and it's being challenged all the moment by Dries van Tor. They're fighting over 13th and 14th places, just 0.02 of a second between them, so very close there. So if you just arrived, just turned on to watch what's happening, this is free practice, the first of two here at the Circuit de Catalunya for tomorrow's final round of the Blancpain GT Series for 2017. Fastest. At the top of the time charts, it's a cluster of Mercedes. McLaren trying to pick their way up the order. They've got one in 9th place. Not that one, not Ben Barnicoat's car.
34th place.
But he's not long been in there.
But not reflective either of Ben Barnicoat's talent behind the wheel. So McLaren initially, we saw Andrew Watson in one of the sister cars topping the timing and scoring. And I just looking to see where that car has ended up, because it's certainly not on the...
No, it's moved a lot down the charts.
Which one is it?
59. It's down in 38th position. Stein Schotthorst has taken that over. But very soon, once representative times came through, it was the Mercedes moving to the top of the charts. But the good thing for Ben Barnicoat, as he uses all the curb a little more, is the fact they're really pressing on. But let's go down to the pit lane again, because we want to hear from the Ferrari 333 by Alexander Matschel.
Alex, this is a really exciting weekend for you. Tell me how you're feeling.
Oh, I'm feeling great. I think our race speed at the moment is quite good, so I'm looking forward for the race tomorrow.
Do you have any concerns?
No. Just a little, because I think there might be some rain, I heard, but that's all.
Do you drive well in the wet?
Sorry.
Do you drive well in the wet?
I didn't tell you.
Do you drive well in the wet?
Yeah, I do so.
Great, well, we look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't want to answer that question, did he?
Well, I think, yes, indeed, there was an interesting reaction from Alexander Matschel.
No, but his eyes lit up once he understood what he was being asked, and so there is talk of rain coming tomorrow, but will it or won't it? Again, very localised weather here with the hills around the circuit.
The thing, driving in the rain is not a problem. Driving in the rain when you've got no visibility is a problem.
Okay, well,
and of course, with 51 cars and a wet track, visibility will be the key problem.
Well, 333 being brought back into the pit lane, sharing that with Rinat Salikov and Daniel Kalvitz, who set the car's lap times early on. 17 Audi, we saw that going off at the end of the infield straight down into turn 10. Didn't seem to be anything untoward, but don't forget, this is the car that won the Blancpain GT Sprint title at the Nürburgring with Stuart Leonard and Robin Frientz, and they're sharing it this weekend with Jake Dennis, so a very, very handy lineup. 11th fastest at the moment, so really the sharp end of the Audi field, still slower than the 75 Audi, but starting to pick up the pace. But you try finding a space to get past all the other cars on the track.
It's a real duck and dive around the entry to turn 5. Quicker cars that run laps, getting slightly compromised by slower cars, so 16. Looking to see that one of the black Volker Mercedes, and it's not Oliver Moore, is it?
No, it's Marvin Kirchhofer.
Yeah. That's just jumped up to 17th. First time we've seen an improvement in some time really since we saw the number 90 Mercedes-Benz move up. So the black Volker Mercedes into the top 20.
Yeah, Tristan Vautier in the 88 Mercedes just saw at the front of that grouping. He's third fastest, but he's had to work his way through that gaggle of traffic. You can see the red Mercedes just going towards the end of the lap, flashing through the bottom of your screen. Worked his way through that pack. One of the cars in there is the number 12 Ombra Racing Lamborghini, the red, white and blue car. There's the third fastest of the Mercedes. You can see that Mercedes, now the BMW in front, one of the two from Volkenhorst. Keeps out of the way, very well done indeed.
Yeah.
to let number 11, Stuart Leonard, come through. But Leonard has got still a lot more traffic in front of him. Final 8 minutes of the session. Sun still shining here. Still slightly hazy morning at the Circuit de Catalunya. But for Stuart Leonard on a massive high after winning that title. Did they not say to you that they still pinching themselves to realise they nailed it?
Yes, I mean, it was a victory that they maybe felt before the race started was less than likely to happen. But when they find themselves in the position of winning the sprint championship, and they are still, the reality of that achievement is still filtering through the system.
Now, the 824 Lamborghini, that loose bit of bodywork was on the other side. The little strip has been taken off the side. Caitlin Wood still at the wheel.
Caitlin,
there she is. Aussie racer, started in Formula Ford and has worked her way forward from there. But outside as you'd expect, outside the top 40, so therefore not on the 2 timing screens we have. But they stepped up from GT4 to gain experience at this top level, and it's good to have them back, frankly.
And no mean achievement either, because you're in the most competitive GT series in the world. You're not in the most competitive of the cars in the field, but certainly making the best use of the Gallardo up through turn 8 into turn 9.
Yeah, and a big
negotiates that successfully, then the run down the hill. So Caitlin just needs track time. It's very hard to come into a championship as competitive as this without getting track time. No,
but also racing earlier in the year, having stepped up as a reward for doing really well in the GT4 European Series. Someone else has just locked up at the end of the back straight. So it's a big step ahead anyhow. But even from the midpoint of the season, when they withdrew, to now, all the teams have moved on forward and all the driver lineups have gained more experience. So they're on very much the back foot at the moment, but great to have them back on board so they can end their 2017 season with more experience to take into next year.
But the big asset that they have is having Thomas Enger there as an advisor at every level, both in terms of car setup. Having said that, the number 89 Mercedes has just leapt up into 10th place, and that was set by Nico Bastien. So suddenly popped up out of nowhere.
And now Jules Gounon's back in the 87 car that's been knocked so rudely off the top of the charts by its teammate. He is starting to wind that up. He's right in the mix, 2 tenths down on the best time he set earlier in the session. So he's trying to get the Inter-ASP battle in his favour.
Anyway, going back to Thomas Enger and his contribution to the Lamborghini, the rider Lamborghini, entertainment manager, team
everything.
Manager, hospitality manager.
But if you see him,
everything.
Earlier in the start of the season, Dubai 24 Hours, he was managing the team. He never went to bed. He never stopped. He's just that bundle of energy and enthusiasm, and just absolutely loves it all. So yeah, what a great person to have running Marco Hellerstedt-Kangas and Caitlin Wood, driving them forward. Looking at Marco Zanettini in the 888 Ferrari, running in the AM Cup class for Kessel Racing, showing with Jack Diver and David Perel. He's in the background, the red Ferrari there with the black band across the nose. And he's in 24th position overall. So top of the AMs by some 16 positions and more. So going very, very well indeed. But in the final 5 minutes of the session, a lot of the drivers now just, I don't know, some seem to be backing off to maybe make a bit of clear track, but most of their tyres are quite old now, so really don't expect a great deal of improvements. No. But one has come just there. The 89 Mercedes has moved up to 9th place overall.
Yes, it's made a further improvement on that last lap. So Nico Bastien, on whatever rubber he is now on, had sufficient performance in the set of tyres to improve one lap, then the second lap. So up to 9th place on a 147.9. Just over half a second away from the quickest overall time. The number 90, I mean, it's becoming like a Mercedes.
Mercedes fest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Car 72, we've had that number on our screens before. SMP Racing Ferrari, they were warned for contact. A bit of a twitch and a fiddle there. They've got a warning about track limits at T14, that's chicane. 53 is the Spirit of Race Ferrari, the black Ferrari, Nick Thomason, Louis Michels and Bertolini. Now Jules Gounon starting to wind it up at the top. He just did a 1 minute 47.8 to match his 1 minute 47.6. But then he did a 1 minute 55, so he's bunched up behind traffic. It compromised the last lap to an enormous 7-degree
and laid the rubber down there into turn, out of turn 4. But with this level of traffic, he is utterly compromised. Frustration. He's a young man. He's got to learn to deal with this kind of situation. Again, the back end of the Mercedes is certainly pushing hard. For what purpose? Because
yeah, 3 minutes to go.
Every corner he's losing time, and he's not going to find it easy to find a way past the Ferrari up the hill into turn 9. Certainly showed the nose of the Mercedes really, really pushing hard now. Coming down into turn 10, goes to the right, then cuts and goes to the left.
Bertolini isn't interested, but I'm pleased he's got past simply because Bertolini was looking really rather ragged with the Mercedes pushing very, very hard behind him. Actually, 53 at the moment is listed as Louis Machil's at the wheel, not Bertolini. So at this late stage of session, drivers not always managing to flick the driver identification point across, but there we have it, top of the hill, going down the slope into the chicane. The 87 Mercedes set the pace early on, reduced only as far as second place by one of the 3 sister cars, and enough is enough for Gunnar. He's coming in to cool down in the pit lane. He wasn't going to get past that whole gaggle in the next lap and a half. No,
and I mean, there's 2 minutes remaining, so what's the point? As we look at the Lamborghini team now, checking pressures.
So the Lamborghini have been looking very good. It's the only car among the Mercedes. But Audi, though, not really in the mix this morning. The best place of the cars, not from Team WRT camp, but from ISR. Philippe Salicada in the car, 75 Audi from ISR. He shares with Frank Stippler and Kevin Chekon. But the WRT cars, we saw them earlier, two of them locking up down into turn 10. How good they are on the brakes, we don't know, but it has seemed most unusual this morning.
Number 2, Stefan Raquelme behind the wheel. Well, that was sent Benoit Trulli, but Stefan Raquelme on the screen, so the usual story doesn't get the transponder switched over. But 37th position. A man of Benoit Trullier's ability, legend, but you know, exactly. Showing with Ben Trullier, all those Le Mans wins don't lie, and Nathaniel Berton, very strong driver lineup. But right now, yes, people use these sessions in different ways. You may not be going for the ultimate time, but you don't expect to be down in 37th position. But we did see that the number 90 Mercedes was well and truly embedded in page 2. And just give it some fresh rubber, bosh. Yeah. There you are.
And one of the sister cars, Nico Bastian, 3 laps in a row, or 3 out of 4, he's improved his lap time up to 8th position overall. So even more of a Mercedes stranglehold. The top Audi now down in 9th.
What's interesting, Bruce, he's done that over a number of laps with traffic and being patient, but just finding clear track where he can and just chipping away and making progress.
So are we going to get any other late rumbles, late charges up the chart? Certainly the body language, the number 2 Audi of Richelme pushing hard, but he's got traffic up ahead of him. So he's got one of the McLarens in front of his path, and this lap for the number 2 Richelme car might be close to his best. There's the checkered flag. How good a lap is it from Richelme? No improvement, close to his best, but stays down in 37th position. So it's Mercedes all the way at the first of the 2 free practice sessions. Free practice this morning, then official practice this afternoon at 16:40. Ferrari's topping the charts in the case of the 888 car in the AM class. Pro-Am honours with Nico Bastian, who was making that late charge in the 89 ACA ASP Mercedes, but it's Mercedes at the front end. So they go back on track this afternoon, 20 minutes to 5, for another hour and a half. What have we learned? Mercedes seem to have things fairly much under control. We've learned that track limits, drivers being warned for exceeding them at turn 14, and we've learned that drivers can go wrong into turn 7, which John thinks is a bit of a phenomenon, and we've seen the Audis locking up down the slope to this very point where we're looking at the fastest car into turn 10.
Word coming back from the Audi teams is they don't seem to have an issue with brakes, but we saw clearly 2 of their cars major lockups, the 17 in particular, major lockup into turn 10. So, I mean, if that's not an issue, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and also if you think of the calibre of the drivers, Marcel Fesser and Robin Frientz, nobody's fools. So anyhow, I'm sure they will be working, scratching their heads and considering life with that. So in comes the 90 Mercedes. After that late run, it went to the top of the charts. Eduardo Mortara bringing it back in at the end of the session.
Andy Soucek with father and partner and friends, explaining, a very intent looking
Well, there we
group
have.
around them.
Look how Mercedes just padding out the top 10 there with a lot of them. Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini and McLaren also getting a toe in the water. But for the ACA ASP team, they have three of the top, well, they have the top three cars, and they only brought four, so that's a very, very good run indeed for them. Top car in the Pro-Am class is their fourth car. In fact, they're four of the top 8 cars for ACA ASP. So the top Pro-Am car in 8th, and we get down to 24th position. Bottom of your screen is the top car in the AM class, the Kessel Racing Ferrari 888, shared by Marco Zannettini, Jack Doiver and David Perel. 1.5 seconds off the pace, another very good run from them. And the screens keep on coming. 50 cars came out to play here in Barcelona for the final round of the 2017 Blancpain GT Series, and it was a good clean practice session, a couple of little runs through the gravel, but I think a lot of the teams gained considerable experience and track knowledge here this morning. But as John has pointed out and will continue to point out, the track conditions change here at the Circuit de Catalunya almost by the minute, and so the teams need to just keep on trying to glean what data they can. The Writer Youngstars car down towards the tail end, their 45th position, but again 2.7 seconds off the pace, that's not bad as they try and pick their way up the order. The last two cars, the Kaspersky Motorsport Ferrari listed at the bottom, it went off on its outlap and had to be brought back into the pit lane. But let's take a look at the highlights as the sun started to shine here in the Circuit de Catalunya. Packed circuit, as you can see, keeping out of the other driver's way as you try to find your track position and start to improve your pace was absolute key. The 333 Ferrari from Rinaldi Racing, Alexander Batchel, Renat Salikov and Daniel Karvitz getting stuck in early on, and then just did spin off, John. We saw the 55 Kaspersky car was listed as spinning off. It hadn't, it pulled off, and then the HB Racing Lamborghini also had a problem. That brought out the red flag as that was recovered. Now the curbing on the inside of the chicane, do you hit it or not? The answer should be not, but a lot of the drivers were learning early on. Then the first of two lockups from the Audi camp down into turn 10. Had us Fox, Robin Frieds jinking around the cones there, came back in for a fresh set of tyres, because certainly there would have been lots of soft flat spots on those. Then the Lamborghini going past with bodywork flapping, that was already flapping before it went off. And another lock-up at the front of the screen, this time Marcel Festler's turn at the very same point that Robin Friens has gone off. And then Renger van der Zande, very early in the lap, had a tyre go down, had to limp his whole way back round the circuit, kept out of people's way as much as possible. 19 Lamborghini coming to a halt at the edge of the circuit, but it was the ACA ASP cars that started moving up the order, and the 89 car going very strongly indeed towards the front. But it's been a great session here. Mercedes seem to be the car to have now. How it will be this afternoon, we will find out right now. But it's the 90 car that has the bragging rights. Meadows, Mortara and Marcello, fastest of all.